Hello, friend, and welcome to the Shannon Blanchard podcast. Today's episode is going to be a behind-the-scenes look at my journey as an entrepreneur. I have been working in the online space for over 5 years now, and I'd love to share with you what my honest, vulnerable journey has looked like. I'm going to share the highs, the lows, everything from starting my business with no experience to scaling to over $90 an hour, hitting 6K months, becoming a mentor, and everything in between. I will talk about how I actually got clients and how I really built a business and a career that is my dream job. I wake up every single day feeling so lucky to do what I do, and that has been the case for my entire business pretty much from day one that I started. And I want to share all of this because in the mentoring and coaching space that I work in now, I really value transparency and honesty. I think it's so important to know who you are learning from and what their journey really has been. So this is not just going to be the highlights reel. I really want to get into the nitty-gritty of my experience over the last 5 years. I'm excited to dive in, and without further ado, let's get into it because I think you might be a little surprised to hear where my life was going before I started my business. In spring of 2020, I graduated from college with a degree in interdisciplinary studies. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it basically just means that you study 2 fields for your degree. So my primary field was biblical and theological studies, and my secondary field was fine arts, specifically theater and music. In addition to that, I had a double minor in biblical studies and in ancient Greek, because if you're not familiar, when you study the Bible, you study either Hebrew and or Hellenistic Greek, because those are the languages, of course, that the manuscripts of the Bible as we know it today were written in. So in the spring, I graduate with this degree, and as you can imagine, I'm headed down this path of theology. That's something that I love still to this day. Theology, I think, is one of the best topics in the world. I find it fascinating. I love watching theologians and biblical scholars debate on YouTube. It's like the highest form of entertainment to me. I love it. So I was headed down this path, potentially going to work in the church, etc. Well, shortly thereafter, after graduating, I essentially deconstruct from the faith and from this box that is modern Christianity. And I realize I'm never going to use this degree because I'm never going to pursue working in the church anymore. Along with that, obviously, 2020, it's COVID. A lot is happening in the world. Needless to say, I'm so confused. I am working as a barista at this job that I've had for almost 7 years that I'm so over. I hate it. I'm sick of waking up early, and I really don't know what to do with my life career-wise. At this time, I was very into manifestation and law of attraction, all of those things. And if you've heard of the 3-6-9 method, I was doing that every single day. It's basically just like writing down your, manifestations every single day, multiple times a day. So literally, I still have the notebook where I was writing every day that I was calling in a job that I could do online. And specifically, my lifelong goal, literally since I was 8 years old, was to move to Los Angeles, California. So I was like, I need a job that I can work online that will get me to California, that will fund me getting there, and that I can continue to work once I'm there so I don't need to find a new job. So that was I need this, and that is what I was manifesting. Well, later that summer, early fall, I, like most people, find a TikTok about virtual assisting, and I think I literally probably watched one TikTok. I'm not exaggerating. And I signed up for a course, and I was like, I am doing this. I knew immediately in my heart that it was the right thing for me. Had I ever contemplated becoming an entrepreneur? Absolutely not. Business was of no interest to me. None of it mattered. It was absolutely a decision of the heart that I knew it was the right thing for me. So I signed up for this course, which starts in December. It goes into the beginning of 2021. And in January, I knew that I was going to be having surgery where after that surgery, I wasn't going to be able to walk for about 6 months. Quick correction from future Shannon. I meant to tell you that I was not going to be able to walk for 6 weeks after my surgery, not 6 months. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start this business. And then after I have that surgery, I'm going to launch. I literally quit my job. I think I had less than a full week of PTO left. I had no savings. I purchased the course with my credit card. I may have even maxed out the credit card, to be completely honest with you. I can't explain it to you. I was all in. I just knew this was the right thing for me. So here we are at the end of January in 2021, and I launched my business. I started working as a virtual virtual assistant to brand new web designers. And let me tell you, did I know a thing about what brand new web designers did? Literally no clue. I had no idea. All I knew was that they were creatives, and I was like, great. I'm going to offer admin services. You're creative. I'm going to go for it. And as I mentioned, I was a barista. I had no applicable skills. I knew nothing about marketing. I didn't know what Canva was. I've never been somebody to post on social media in my life. Everything about this experience was brand new, but incredibly exciting to me. And you know, when you just know in your heart something is aligned, it's a little scary, but it really lights you up. That was the feeling that I had. So I launched, and I'm basically like, okay, crickets, nothing is happening. I'm barely getting followers. What is happening? But finally, in mid-March, I get my first discovery call. I get on this call, and you guys, I'm not joking. Within 2 minutes of the call, I knew like this is going nowhere, because this woman is really legit. She knows what she's looking for. She's obviously very professional, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no experience in what I'm talking about. So I mentally sort of check out on this discovery call, and I'm like, well, you know, I lost it, but at the end of the day, it'll be a good experience. So whatever. So we get off the discovery call. I send her my proposal, and the next day she's like, okay, great. I want the 20 hours a month package. Like, let's do this. And I'm thinking two things. One, oh my God, I just got my first client. I'm making money for myself online. I literally can't believe this. And two, I'm thinking, oh crap, I don't know what I'm doing, right? So I got that client. I was charging her $35 an hour, and it ended up being a fantastic client relationship. We worked together for well over a year. I absolutely loved her. Of course, you figure things out as you go. You know, you ask questions, you Google things, and we had a great working relationship. I'm so grateful for that. And this is a takeaway I want you to have from this small little snippet so far, is that if you don't have the skills, if you don't have the background, you don't know what you would do to offer services online, you can do it. I promise you, you do not need experience. You can start your own business online as well. So for several months after booking that first client, it was a slow grow. I was booking a client here, a client there. And by the end of the summer, I realized I really need to hone in on who I am speaking to. I got really specific on not just working with brand and web designers as my niche, but like, who is that actual ideal client that I want to work with, and what are they struggling with? What do they want to accomplish in their business? And in addition to that, I thought critically about, what do I enjoy most about the client work experience that I have so far? What am I really loving doing, and how can I continue to hone in on that? So I really honed in on my project management and systems-oriented services. And like I said, I got hyper clear on those pain points and desires. And I started relentlessly showing up on my stories on Instagram, as well as on my feed, speaking to that person who would benefit from what I had to offer. I was really talking about how I could help my ideal client. And the result of that was booking 3 clients in 1 month, which meant I was booked out. At this point, I started making over $3,000, which was absolutely insane. As somebody who previously just started my business, you know, my bi-weekly paychecks were less than $1,000. So making $3,000 a month was unbelievable to me. It was so freeing and exciting. And this is why I always talk about knowing your ideal client avatar. It is one of the most important tools you can have in your business. Any stage of business you're in, you need to know your ideal client avatar, but especially if you're in that first year of business, it will really help you to speed things up and start getting clients. That's why I teach literally everyone that I mentor. I teach them how to create your ideal client avatar. It's why I created the Match Made in Heaven workbook and video class that I sell on my site, which I'm thinking about this on the spot, but I want more people to have that tool. So if you are interested, you can check out the Match Made in Heaven workbook. I'm going to create a code for 15% off. Let's have the code be go get clients. Because I'm serious. I want you to understand who you are serving and use it to your advantage to start getting clients. So you can check that out. I'll put a link in the show notes, all of the good stuff, but let's keep going. So now let's talk about the first major transition that I made in my business. And I am going to speak after this timeline. I'm going to talk to you about how I was getting clients. But at this point, after I become booked out, I think I had 5 or 6 clients. And that for me, I was feeling at capacity. I needed time to adjust to that workload, get to know my new clients. So my books were closed. I started a wait list. And over that fall and winter leading into 2022, I really thought again about what do I love to do and how can I continue to hone in on that. And that was when I realized that I really craved more responsibility in my clients' businesses. I didn't want to just get tasks done, but I wanted to really be a part of running their business and have responsibility and take ownership within their business. So I decided to transition into being an OBM. If you haven't heard of that before, it's similar to a virtual assistant, but much higher level of responsibility. It's very systems oriented, etc. So I became an online business manager. At this point, I kept the clients that I was working with. I didn't get rid of anyone, but online, I opened my books now as an OBM and no longer as a virtual assistant. I then at that point booked 2 clients who ended up becoming, one of them in particular was a big client. And so with those 2 more clients, I became booked out again. I kind of catapulted into over $6,000 a month in revenue. This was truly life-changing. I mean, consider the fact that I had started my business about a year ago and I now was making over $90 an hour, over $6,000 a month. This experience truly transformed my life and I was having the best time. When I look back, it's such a happy time of my life. I loved the work that I was doing. I loved and adored the clients that I was working with. My husband and I were able to move into a really nice new apartment. I was getting gifts and like curating these custom kind of gift baskets for each of my clients. Like it just was the absolute best time. And then the first major heartbreak of my business occurs. So that summer, I ended up losing 2 clients essentially back to back, and it was a huge dip in my income. It was like over $3,000 a month. Now, thankfully, I will say, because of the contract that I was working on, it's the one that I created with my lawyer, and it was retainer based, I didn't lose all of that income within just a couple of weeks. I had a matter of months to prepare for that loss of income, thank God. But I remember literally sitting in my office chair, sobbing and being like, genuinely, my business is over. Like it is done. I lost these huge clients. This is a huge dip in my income. What am I going to do? I felt unbelievably defeated. And my husband was just sitting on the floor looking at me like, it's okay. Like you don't know how, but you're going to figure this out. It's going to be okay. So that experience, while it was really, really scary, it's always going to happen at some point in your business. Like at some point you're going to have an experience where you're like, oh my gosh, how will I ever get through this? And now, of course, looking back, I'm like, girl, that was really not a big deal at all. But when it's the first time, it feels so scary. But it really lit me up to keep showing up again. I honed in again on who am I serving? Why do they need me? Speaking to that. And before I knew it, I had booked another client. And then a couple months later, again, I booked another client and everything in the world, was fine again. And I didn't know it at the time, but those 2 clients would actually end up becoming the last 2 OBM clients that I ever booked. So how the heck was I booking these clients? Because as I said, not only was I charging high rates, charging over $90 an hour, but I also loved the clients I was working with. I never had a true nightmare client. I had one client ever where it was kind of weird. Like, honestly, she just had extreme control issues, but she still was not a nightmare client. So I am so fortunate. Every single client I worked with, I absolutely loved. And I was getting all of my clients through Instagram. Every single one, except for people who were referrals from clients I was currently working with, all of them came through Instagram. So I was posting to my feed, really showing up on my stories, talking directly about my services. Make sure that you take note of that if you are trying to get clients yourself. Stories are one of the most important ways that you actually will convert your audience and get clients. And most people are so terrified of showing up on their stories. And I think it's kind of funny because the thing about your stories is obviously they disappear after 24 hours. So show up, be confident, talk about your services and how it will help people. Put up question boxes and have clear call to actions. Like have a link for your discovery call or your inquiry form, whatever you use. So every single client that I booked that got me to making over $6,000 a month, I got them all through Instagram. It is the biggest misconception that you have to be multi-platform to make great money online. You do not need to be multi-platform, especially if you are in your first year of business. Do not worry about showing up on multiple platforms until you have mastered just one. And if you are a service provider like a virtual assistant, an OBM, a project manager, Pinterest manager, Instagram will do the heavy lifting for you. It's going to be the best place to show up because that's where your clients are going to be active. So no matter what platform you use, wherever your clients, your dream clients are active, don't feel the pressure to be multi-platform until and if it makes sense for your business. Now on Instagram, I was not doing any cold pitching. I was not randomly DMing people talking about my services, none of that. I just relied on building authentic connections and community with people. So I would find people who were dream clients, I would follow them, and I would every single day log onto Instagram, scroll through my feed, and just genuinely engage with the content from the people that I was following. I would like their posts, I would comment on them authentically, I would respond to people's stories, and I never had to go about sales in a way that felt gross or pushy or slimy. It was all about genuine connection. And when they were ready to hire somebody, they would reach out to me because we had built that connection. So that is how I booked every single one of my clients. Now, after getting those last couple of OBM clients, we fast forward to the winter of 2022. And I remember distinctly, I was going through a Mars retrograde in my 10th house. And if you're not familiar with astrology, the 10th house just has to do with your career, your public image, what you do out in the world. And it was this real, reevaluation of who I wanted to be publicly, how I wanted to show up, and what I wanted to do, like what kind of career I actually wanted to build. And I knew I had such a burning desire to be a mentor that I could not ignore anymore. I actually knew for a long time that I would want to transition into mentorship at some point because I loved my client calls more than anything. I wanted to talk with my clients for hours, which is just not what you do when you're a virtual assistant or an OBM. But I really loved that one-on-one relationship and I craved more depth and I wanted to help. But it was important to me that I got real hands-on experience doing what I was going to be teaching and that I had those experiences of having the highs of becoming booked out and then losing clients and feeling really desperate and then coming back up and continuing to build my business through all the seasons that entrepreneurship, provides you with. So by the end of 2022, I knew I can no longer ignore this. I really have a desire to become a mentor. And I set a goal and I said, if in 2023 at any point I can make mentorship my full-time work and replace my VA and OBM clients, that is my goal. Like that is all I wanted. And that was terrifying to me. I was so unbelievably scared of making this leap in my business. It was still to this day the scariest decision I have ever made because it was going in a completely different direction. I didn't know how to run a coaching business. I didn't know, how I was going to get students. I really was walking into an unknown, but in the same way as when I started my business in the first place, I knew in my heart it was what I had to do, and I just could not ignore it anymore. So I had started offering some free mentorship calls to get some experience. And I basically just said, look, God, you have to take care of my clients leaving me because I don't want to break up with any of my clients. And you're going to have to bring all of the right students to me. What ended up happening was incredible because I had been posting here and there on TikTok. In January of 2023, I started taking it really seriously, posting more. By February, you guys, I was becoming booked out with my mentorship and all of my clients but 2 left me just one by one. No bad reason. They all just had different, like one of them was pregnant. One of them was going through a really slow season in their business. They just all were going through different things and left when the time was right on really great terms. And I was getting all of these mentorship students. So I realized pretty quickly that I was going to have to build out a program because let me paint the picture for you of what my mentorship program looked like at that point. I had a 4-week intensive where I would work one-on-one with my student for 4 weeks. And every single week we would get on a call and I would talk for literally an hour straight and tell them everything about starting their business. And to this day, I'm so grateful because so many of those students are still thriving and running their businesses. Some of them are running multiple businesses, which is amazing. But you can imagine that I'm like exhausted from doing this every single day. I'm getting on, 4 or 5 calls where I'm just talking nonstop. And I'm like, I have to create a program where there are video lessons. So that had not been on my radar at all. But at this point, obviously, I knew that it was the obvious next step. I started feverishly developing what would become what is now my signature program called Lucky Day. I was putting together the curriculum, putting together a course. Again, I had no idea how to do it. I was working well over 40 hours a week building out this course and figuring out how to do this. And in the meantime, I had a video go viral on Instagram, and my mentorship wait list grew to like 800 people. So I feel incredibly rushed to develop this program because I have all these people waiting to work with me, which is amazing. But also I was booked out with mentorship students. I actually asked my husband to stop working so he could focus on just taking care of cooking and cleaning. We had a brand new puppy. Like, he was doing everything, and I was glued to my laptop developing this program. So finally then I have this program completely put together, and literally on like the day that it's all done and ready, I'm sending out a newsletter to all these people. I knew nothing about email marketing. Like, I did not know what I was doing, but I just was like, life is demanding this from me right now, so I'm showing up for the moment. So I launched my first round. It sold out, and now almost 3 years later, I've been refining it ever since. I know that sounds absolutely amazing and rainbows and butterflies, and we wish it could just end there. But I will tell you, it did not. Especially in the early phase, like the first 6 months of mentorship and Lucky Day and all of these things, I was going through a massive time of disillusionment. I was making more money than ever, but felt incredibly riddled with guilt. I woke up every single day just feeling immense dread and anxiety. I had journaled in my diary. I'm a huge journaler. I write like every single day. And I was like, I have everything I've ever wanted, and it feels nothing like I thought it would feel. I feel intense dread. I was so anxious. And at the time, like, I knew nothing about nervous system regulation, any of that stuff. And so I was basically just suffering through this experience. And it eventually, because I was so busy then, my foot was totally off the gas in terms of marketing my business. So then, of course, that leads into a very slow season. So all of this resulted in the smallest round I ever had in Lucky Day. I was so confused, really upset, really frustrated, and feeling the pressure of, oh my gosh, I have to get things back on track, because how am I going to generate more revenue? It's completely different than the work I was doing as a virtual assistant and an OBM, which is really more long-term work. You have more long-term revenue secured typically than you do, especially when you're starting out as a coach or mentor. So it was a very challenging time for me. I went through this period of just feeling like I was totally walking in the dark and had this fog over my eyes, because I knew that I loved what I was doing. I have never once questioned if I wanted to be a mentor. Like, I know that this is what I am meant to do. I love it so much, and I just could not figure out how to get out of it. But ultimately, when you are in those really slow seasons, when you are in the depths, like the lowest point in your business, it is so painful in the moment, but you learn so much from it, and you become so resilient. You become gritty. You learn how to get out of those situations. You adapt. Ultimately, it just lit my heart on fire even more for what I wanted to do. I became even more passionate and became really clear on, again, who I'm serving, who I am here for. And with time, I came out of that fog and started to build momentum again in my business. And this is the thing I always say about coaching. It is like an extreme sport. There are very high highs, but the lows are also very low. And it takes time to really build up a coaching business that is sustainable for most people anyway. So I think it's interesting because there's a lot of criticism of coaches in the online space, which I completely understand. And oftentimes people have this sentiment of like, oh, well, you just became a coach to make money, and everybody just becomes a coach eventually. And I always just sort of laugh, because I'm like, you think that, but the reality is, if your heart is not absolutely certain about being a coach, if you are not doing it because it is the thing your heart is telling you to do, you will fail. It is not for the weak. It is far harder than any experience I had as a virtual assistant or as a mentor. And so you have to know that it's the right thing for you. So this leads me to actually a question that I had gotten on Instagram, because prior to recording this episode, I put up a question box on my stories, and I had actually a previous student back from the 4-week mentorship that I mentioned earlier. She asked me, how did you know when it was the right time to transition into coaching? And as I've touched on numerous times, it's something that you know in your heart if it is the right thing. I don't think it's something that you should go about in a super logical, analytical, left-brained way. I think it is something that if you know in your heart, it doesn't matter if your mind thinks, well, how will I do it? And how am I going to get students or clients? And how am I going to market myself? What are my offers going to be? My pricing? None of that matters, because you can figure all of that stuff out. But the question is, if you have the desire in your heart, that's how you know. I just knew that I craved that deeper connection. I wanted one-on-one connection with people. I knew that I wanted to help and support people. I really wanted to teach. And I was really passionate about the fact that I had just completely transformed my life over the last couple of years, starting my business in the online space. And I just thought, more people have got to know about this. Like, more people have got to become equipped with the tools to start a business that changes their lives, that is going to be sustainable. So if you have that desire in your heart for whatever you are potentially interested in coaching, if it's speaking to you, that's how you know. Everything can get figured out later. Don't worry about that. Don't make the decision from your mind, but just sink into your heart and into your heart space and ask, like, what do I want? What do I dream of for my future? So to wrap up this timeline, all of this leads to today. I am, of course, a mentor to aspiring online entrepreneurs. I help other young women start and build a business that will change their lives, learning how to say yes to the desires of their heart so they can build a life and a career that truly lights them up. I still run my signature program, Lucky Day. I usually run it a few times a year, and that is an 8-week one-on-one mentorship experience. And then I've got Infatuated, my evergreen course about creating content. I've got digital resources on my site. And more than anything, I am truly so lit up about helping other young women change their lives through entrepreneurship. That is why, of course, I've started this podcast. And it is my hope and vision for this podcast specifically for it to become the #1 resource for female entrepreneurs. I want it to become really practical and helpful for you. It is my dream to provide so much valuable information for you. I have so many planned episodes coming up that I cannot wait to dig into. But here's what I want you to take away from my experience as an entrepreneur. #1 is be clear on who you want to work with, who you want to serve, how you want your work life to look, meaning what hours you want to work, what clients you want to work with, how much you want to make, and do not settle for anything less. I built a business that I absolutely loved and that was sustainable for me and truly supported the lifestyle that I wanted because I never settled. I never compromised on what I wanted. Compromising is such a slippery slope. If you let yourself say yes to one client you don't really want to work with or take a rate that's lower than you want, it's just so easy to get stuck in a really crappy situation. So do not settle. It's okay if it takes longer for you to build your vision. It's better for it to take longer and it be what you really want than to end up in a situation where you feel like this is not the life I want. This isn't the business I want. I'm working a ton, not making enough money, and it's not what I want to do. So #1, be clear on who you want to work with and do not settle for anything less than what you want for your business. The second thing is to focus on sustainability. That is a huge part of building an online business. Of course, entrepreneurship carries a lot of risks with it, but you can build your business in such a way where it is sustainable. So think about the contracts or the agreements that you have for working with your clients. How can that become sustainable for you? How can you have a sustainable marketing strategy? Everything in your business should be sustainable for you. Now, a couple more things that I want to say, but next I just want to encourage you to not become desperate. Stay anchored in your long-term vision. Remember why you started your business, what you want to build, and keep thinking about that every single day. You have to keep your eye on the ball and stay focused on what it is that you're building. And don't get caught up in the day-to-day. Oh, it's not here yet. I haven't gotten a client. It's not happening. The highs and lows are going to pass, but if you stay focused on that long-term vision, it will happen. Do not let yourself get distracted by the day-to-day. And the last thing I want to say is lead with your heart and stay anchored in how you can serve your audience. When you get caught up in questions like, oh, what's so unique about me? Nobody will buy from me. I don't have anything unique to offer. Remember who you are serving. Stop thinking about yourself and focus on who you are serving, and really ask yourself, how can I show up for that person? How can I help them? What is a genuine impact that I can make in their lives? And do not shut up about it. You want to help them, so be loud. Go tell them, I'm here to help you. Here's what I can do for you. Here's the change I can create in your life, and lead with your heart. So all of that leads me to my sort of philosophy and approach as a mentor. I have a huge focus on sustainability, and not just building any business, but really creating a business that you absolutely love and that lights you up. I'm an extremely hands-on mentor. So my program, Lucky Day, that I mentioned earlier, is 8 weeks of unlimited one-on-one support. So it's unlimited one-on-one calls, unlimited one-on-one chat. I want to be involved in your business. I want to help you, support you. There's nothing I want more than to see you thrive and succeed. I want to see you leave the job that you hate, to be able to finally go on vacations, to have financial security and comfort, and to have work that you love and enjoy. Like, that is my dream. So I'm very hands-on and very invested in the success of my students. And ultimately, I am just here to help other young women transform their lives through the power of entrepreneurship. So if you are interested in working together or learning more about what I have to offer, you can head over to my site. As a reminder, you can use that code to get 15% off the Match Made in Heaven workbook, which will teach you my 4-phase process for creating an ideal client avatar completely from scratch, determining their pain points, their desires. And you can use code GOGETCLIENT to get 15% off. Like I said, I will leave that link in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.